Welcome back to another Post Media Senators panel. I'm Bruce Garrioch with Ken Warren of Post Media. And Ken, let's start out with the Ottawa Senators 1-1-1 start, and they're coming off a 4-3 overtime loss to the Winnipeg Jets on Tuesday night. Just your initial impressions of this team.
Well, I think generally speaking, if you're looking at the record and what expectations might have been coming in, I think pleasantly surprised would be generally the reaction of how they've played. They played pretty well in the three games. Saturday night was a bit of a clunker, but you turn that around and they probably deserved to win on Tuesday based on dominating most of that game. A late collapse, which creates some issues. How do you deal with protecting a lead? But all this stuff, I think, is not. There's no crisis. There's no shock here. And I think if when you're looking at it from a fan perspective, the most impressive thing is the play of the young line of Drake Batherson with Josh Norris and Brady Tkachuk. And I think they have really been very dynamic for the most part in the first three games.
Well, and that's where you probably want to go next is the play of Josh Norris. This is a guy, Ken, who at every level has shown improvement. He showed improvement when he went to college. He obviously didn't play long because he got the shoulder injury and left after the year. He was a strong player at that World Juniors in Vancouver. Last year in the American Hockey League, he had 31 goals. I spoke to Doug McLean a few weeks ago on this panel, and one of the things he said was that 31 goals in your first season in the American Hockey League is a remarkable accomplishment. We saw him score his first NHL goal on Tuesday night against the Jets. Right now, the sky appears to be the limit for this guy.
Great start to his NHL career. I mean, he had three games last year, but great start. And I think we'll get into this, roster and the decisions that Smith's going to have to make here going along. But if we go back and think if that was a choice between Logan Brown or Josh Norris to win that spot, I don't think anybody can criticize the decision. I saw Josh Norris quite a bit down in Belleville last year. He's the same kind of player at the NHL level. It's amazing he's been able to be that smooth in the adjustment. And I think the other part of it, we all know about Brady Tkachuk and what Brady Tkachuk could do. But the Drake Batherson also looks like a far more confident, aggressive player. It's not just his playmaking on the power play and on even strength, but he's forceful. You see him on the boards and he's winning battles. He's stronger. And the three of them together have had some chemistry early on.
Well, and that leads us to that kid line of Tkachuk, Norris, and Batherson. And you touch on Batherson a little bit. One of the things that Troy Mann, the head coach of the Belleville Senators, said coming into this training camp was, he felt that Drake Batherson had accomplished everything he could accomplish at the American Hockey League level, and that and that if he was going to make the transition to the National Hockey League level, it kind of had to be this year. And I just wonder what your sense is on him, and also a little bit about the chemistry that we're seeing being formed between Tkachuk, Norris, and Batherson, because these guys have the potential to be the top line for this team for 5 years.
Right, yeah, I think Batherson and Norris obviously had some chemistry playing together last year in Belleville, and it's the power play presence too. They seem to know where each other is. I like the Shabbat Batherson connection. They seem to move the puck around. There's no with Batherson, I think he knows where the puck's going before he gets it, right. And he's we've seen it in a couple of the goals that they've scored opening night. The goal that 5-on-3 with Shabbat was a really nice goal. So I think the chemistry of them playing together has really helped. And Tkachuk's probably going to be able to play with anybody. He's sort of the mutt in front of the net, and those you saw it again on Norris's first goal the other night. He's just creating havoc, and probably could mesh with anybody. But those two so far very good. I mean, I think they maybe had a little bit of a lull in that second game against Toronto, but for the most part, they've been able to play at the pace and the strength as a top NHL line.
I think one of the guys we have to talk about, though, and I think at this point we're going to see him in and out of the lineup is Colin White. The second year of is it $4.25 million cap?
Yeah, the total
Yeah,
was 28, right? So
yeah, 28.5 over 6 years.
yeah.
It's the second year of that contract. This is a guy who's expected to have a bounce back season by all accounts. And, we always have to preface this by saying we weren't in there because of health regulations for the first probably 10 days of training camp. We had been led to believe, Kenny, that he had a good camp. And then coming out of camp, he's a healthy scratch in 2 of the first 3 games. A, what kind of message does that send? B, what is Colin White? What kind of player should Colin White be?
No, it's very all valid questions, and I'm a little baffled, quite frankly. Artem Anisimov, he's being used as a fourth line center. He's been playing on the second power play unit a little bit. I know we've heard he had a great camp. I just don't quite understand the message here. With what's going on. If you're going to play him the 10 minutes, why not play Colin White as a to get him into the rhythm, and maybe hopefully if he finds his confidence to move him up the lineup a little bit. I'm baffled, but and a lot of people are baffled. But I don't know if it's a case of trying to showcase Anisimov a little bit here, and maybe you can get some value for him in a trade, and because. If Colin White had not had a great training camp, then you could say, okay, here's message. But from what we've heard, he had a decent training camp.
Yeah.
He played 10 minutes Saturday, didn't do a whole lot, but I don't think that fourth line for Ottawa so far has been outstanding. I think they've had hits and misses, like Cedric Paquette.
Yeah.
I don't think he's done a whole lot. Austin Watson made some big hits, took maybe a bad penalty the other night, but I just think there's some room to get Colin White in here somewhere.
Yeah, and I do too. And I think if Colin White, I think Colin White has the opportunity at some point, if he can just find it, to be the second line center for this team. If he could somehow just get himself back to some sort of consistency.
Yeah, sorry, to get back to what can he be? Yeah, I think that was the designs of what they had on him originally. They thought maybe he could, Patrice Bergeron light, something like that, where the guy can kill penalties, can help out your power play a little bit, but maybe not be your dominant first line center. And now there's a question. Well, if you're loaded down the middle, then do you go back to this experiment, trying him on the wing just to get him some ice? There's a lot of different equations going on here, and it's a mystery of how they've handled him so far.
Well, and to wrap up here this week, we want to take a look ahead. The Senators play a couple more games against Winnipeg Jets, and then they head out on a 14-day road trip starting Saturday, actually, in Winnipeg, and then a 3-game series against the Vancouver Canucks before stops in Edmonton and Montreal. Just looking at the difficulty of the schedule and the circumstances they're going to be under when they go on the road. You're not leaving the hotel unless you're going for a walk. And even if you go for a walk, Kenny, you're not even supposed to stop for a coffee.
That's the new reality, right? That they're living in. And it's not a bubble, but it's as close to a bubble as it can be, right? And I think, that there's a lifestyle question, of course. I mean, they're still traveling, after games the way they used to a new place. But you're right. You're not going to see the sights, put it that way, when on your off days. I just think from on the on ice perspective, I think what will be interesting will be the matchups. At home, DJ Smith's being able to control how he plays that Norris line, and he's largely used that Chris Tierney, Connor Brown, and Nick Paul as a matchup. The things will change a little bit when the opposition coach has control of who he plays against too. So another challenge for those guys when they get on the road.
Well, we'll stay tuned. We'll be certainly watching everything that happens on that road trip, and we'll be back next week for another edition of the Post Media Senators panel with Ken Warren of Post Media. I'm Bruce Garrioch. Thanks for tuning in.